Okay, Lauren, I need to close one more screen and then we'll get started. Just a minute.
Okay, I'll give it a whirl.
All right, let's get started.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to Forum at First Unitarian Society, Milwaukee, April 11th. So glad that we can share this time together, and thank you for being with us. My name is Lorraine. I'm going to read a short story about the Sunday Forum, and then we'll continue to our program. The Sunday Forum story. Sunday forums have been part of Sunday mornings for over 50 years at First Unitarian Society, Milwaukee. All scheduling and hosting is accomplished by volunteers, and the forums support our First Church mission. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. This lecture series showcases provocative and sometimes controversial speakers who review topical issues of the day. Forum topics are the responsibility of the presenters, who share their point of view as formed through their experience and knowledge. Every forum is not intended to be all sides of the topic nor all points of view. Presenters do not receive honoraria. Forums may not always align with the viewpoint of First Unitarian Society, Milwaukee, but are meant to introduce thoughtful topics, which our members may pursue further on their own. Welcome. I would like to mention that our next week forum on April 11th will be on the topic of Democracy Found, a nonpartisan political innovation in Wisconsin. It's presented by Sarah Estrick, the Executive Director of Democracy Found, and the host is Patricia Witt. I'd like to just mention that the Sunday forums are often and meant to support things that are happening at the First Church. So right now we have a Defend Democracy group, and this definitely supports that movement. Our speaker today from the League of Women Voters is also representing the organization that is our Share the Plate organization for this month of April. And to make donations, you'll get information if you attend our services, and maybe today. So we try to enhance and support things that are happening here at the First Church. It's my pleasure to introduce Ann Batiza, our speaker today. She is Vice President of Organization at the League of Women Voters. And I'm trying to find my notes here. And she is also co-chair of the Natural Resources Committee. Many of us have heard of the League of Women Voters. We have assumptions about what they do, mostly through voting and helping with voting regulations. But Ann is going to talk about that and other things that the League of Women Voters are helping our community with. So I welcome Ann Batiza.
Well, thank you so much, Lorraine. I want to first thank the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee for sponsoring the League through Share the Plate. And we're very grateful that you've honored us in this way. Today, I want to talk about the League, whose mantra is empowering voters and defending democracy. And I'm highlighting here a few newcomers to leadership. Of course, our president is Peggy Creer. Our VP for program is Lorna Grady. Our voter services co-chairs, you're going to be hearing a lot about voter services today, are Lena Scheibengraber and Peg Schrader. We have a new police practices and policy reform committee headed by Linda Lehrman and Barbara Notstein. And then we have a Waukesha branch director, Vicki Errol-Shackmuth. And also I'll be talking a lot about the Natural Resources Committee, and our co-chair is Carol Diggeman. So the League is nonpartisan. That means we do not ever endorse candidates or political parties. And the positions, however, we do advocate for policies and those are based on our policy positions that have been developed over decades, some going back to the 1950s. And these are policies that have been come from the grassroots, voted on at the local level, the state level, and the national level for adoption. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the kinds of things that we do, and I'll be talking a lot about voter services. You can see a plethora of things that voter services does, and this is not even all of it. I'll talk about advocacy and action. The League not only helps voters to learn everything they need to know about candidates and about registration and so on, but we also advocate for certain policy positions, political positions. And that work is done through committees, coalitions, providing testimony, letters, and so on. And I'll give you an example of that. We also try to educate ourselves and the public through public forums and roundtables. And then we have other Lunch and Learn, League Cafe. I'll highlight those later. We also are members of the City and County Ethics Board, and we have a new Waukesha branch headed by the director, Vicki Errol-Shackmuth. We are completely committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and are working very hard to transform all aspects of our the work that we do, our partnerships, and so on, to embody diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I want to speak a lot first about voter services volunteers. They engage thousands of voters and voters to be each year through educational and voter registration activities. And I'm just going to highlight some of them here. Many of you probably have attended candidate forums, and I know that at least 16 members of UU are also members of the League. So this will look familiar to you. Of course, it's not familiar now because we don't have candidate forums in person, but we have recently had candidate forums for village trustees and board members in Shorewood, Whitefish Bay, Greendale, I believe, is another recent candidate forum. We have this fantastic Vote 411 candidate and voting info site on our website. And this effort is headed up by Sarah Jane Kennedy. And there is election information and candidates' answers. We send out questions to candidates, and so you can compare their answers. And we also have this in Spanish. In one of the major foci of voter services is to go into all MPS high schools, and now we've branched out into other high schools as well. But a recent program, because they could not be there in person, even though they sent toolkits to teachers to help teachers help young voters to learn about the voting process and registration and so on. But recently they had this creative endeavor with high school students, express yourself, hear me, see me, follow my lead. And I just want to show you some of the entries from that effort. So here are a couple of entries, one from a 14-year-old, a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old. And this effort was to first establish a remote relationship, given that they could not go into the high schools, which they were so used to doing previously. And then next, they will be focusing more on having the same kind of thing devoted to perhaps what voting means to me. Another way, voter services has at least 10, I believe, different sub groups that each have their own leaders. But this is an effort from the Comité por el Voto Latino. And they have created so many materials, translated them into Spanish, they have extensive partnerships in the community. But in this case, they were creating video conversations. In this case, it was in Spanish between Edith Chavez, an organizer with Muskego Way Forward, and Jonathan Zuniga, who's deputy director of the Milwaukee Election Commission. They did a similar 4-minute video of questions. This was prior to the April 6th election. They did it in English with Claire Woodall-Vogue. And at the end of this, they of course referred people to Vote 411, where there's a Spanish edition of Vote 411. Another thing that Voter Service has done is they've created these voting guides. They're paper, they're shaped like an iPhone, but they have a lot of information and ways to access information about voting. And again, it's in English and Spanish. And most recently, these were inserted into library books that people checked out. Voter Services is an umbrella. I haven't had a chance to talk about all of the aspects, things like the naturalization ceremonies, which we can't go to now, but we've been at every single one to provide information for new voters, public library outreach, community and nonprofit organization training about voting, and senior outreach and community outreach with partners and alliances that I haven't mentioned here. Also, Waukesha County Branch has a very active voter services group. So another thing that the League does, besides really paying attention to voting, is we advocate for issues. And we do this through committee work. And I'm going to highlight the Natural Resources Committee. And I mention again here the Police Practices and Policy Reform Committee. It's a new committee, but very timely. We also work as a part of a coalition or partnership. So we're members of the Fair Maps Coalition, the Coalition on Lead Emergency, Voces de la Frontera, Supermarket Legends, many coalitions and partnerships within Voter Services itself. And we have this new initiative with the State League and the American Society of Civil Engineers, Wisconsin branch, to emphasize infrastructure across the state. We provide letters to public officials, receive action alerts at all levels of the League, and we have a registered lobbyist, and the League also involves itself in litigation. So sometimes we advocate as individuals, and sometimes we can be designated to be speaking for the League. So I want to talk about advocacy through the lens of the Natural Resources Committee. So within the Natural Resources Committee, we have topic leads, and that way we don't lose track. We have continued eyes on a particular issue. So I'll show you a couple here: Pipeline 5, the Lake Michigan Interleague region, climate change, PFAS, infrastructure, and lead issues in Milwaukee. So those are the current topic leads we have. If anybody's out there who would like to join the League and bring up yet another topic for natural resources, that would be wonderful. But one of the ways that we engage and advocate is, and also educate ourselves, is by first, we do study internally, and then back when we were first looking at lead issues, we first held a public forum, and this was in 2018. And you can see we had a research scientist, someone from the health department, and then someone who was involved in actual outreach from 16th Street Community Centers. And after this forum, which highlighted some of the kind of distrust that existed at that time between community members and others around the issue of lead, we thought about what can we do to further this conversation. And so, excuse me, I just want to disconnect my phone here. So we decided that perhaps roundtable discussions where we brought community and members and policymakers at the state and local level together, and community activists, and they sat down across from each other and talked very targetedly about particular issues and then developed burning questions that would move the conversation along. We thought maybe this would work. And so we held our first roundtable discussion in May of 2019, 5 themes emerged from that. This was about testing children for lead poisoning. We saw barriers for parents. We saw possible technological solutions. We saw issues with housing regulations. These issues there's so many facets that this conversation really helped to move our understanding along, and hopefully the understanding of the people who were there. So then we decided to have a second roundtable discussion, this on testing for sources of lead poisoning and preventing poisoning. And we felt that the outcome was a common knowledge base that reduced tensions and that collective and individual actions could follow. But one of the striking things that came out of this roundtable was a focus on the North Side. Data from the state health department showed that in that area highlighted in yellow, 1 in 3 of children tested for lead poisoning was found to be lead poisoning, And in the darker areas around, there were 38 census tracts around where 1 in 4, 1 in 5 were found to be lead poisoning. And so this created, again, a focus, and we decided to have yet another forum. This was just before COVID. It was March 6th of 2020. And many of the panelists who had participated in our roundtable discussions. And we asked them to bring their priorities for the North Side, resources that they bring, and to indicate what was needed. And out of this really came the focus that addressing the lead poisoning of children on the North Side of Milwaukee is a moral imperative. And so our work now continues through the Coalition on Lead Emergency. And with the coalition was able to get funded a Birthing Moms project in the 2019 Milwaukee budget, a commitment in the 2020 budget to having home assessments for all poisoned children at a low threshold of lead poisoning. I mean, nothing is good, obviously, but previously about 1,745 children were not having their homes assessed in 2019 because the health department was operating at a higher threshold given the limited resources they had. And we worked actually with the health department to bring this about. And Cole did, and League was just a part of the supporting cast for Cole. And now we're supporting Cole's Wisconsin 2021-2023 budget request. And briefly, it's to increase funding for local health departments around the state to reduce lead poisoning by paint, and also to begin to replace those dreaded lead service lines. And another initiative that has for advocacy, that first education and then advocacy, that's usually the way it works, is come through a partnership between the State League, but it was actually initiated by our co-chair, Carol Diggeman, and the American Society for Civil Engineers of Wisconsin. And so we're looking at infrastructure and economy meetings, and the next general meeting is coming up April 15th. And then there will be meetings on each of the categories covered by the report card, the Wisconsin report card on infrastructure. And you can see the schedule for those meetings coming up. And so we hope that then these meetings will allow then the local leagues to provide platforms in terms of roundtable discussions, forums, whatever local infrastructure need emerges, so that we can help to provide a platform for advocacy for those issues. We also, of course, consistently are working for fair maps and in gerrymandering. And notice that on April 29th, the Waukesha branch will have a Zoom Fair Maps event as part of the LWV People Power Day of Action. And Vicki Oshekmeth, again, is the director in the Waukesha area. So another way we work is we have a registered lobbyist, and we've already registered opposition to there are at least 6 new bills that our president highlighted in our recent update. And you can see 3 of them here. that have been introduced to inhibit the access to voting and or to inhibit people's ability to vote. And so we have registered in opposition to all of them. I want you to notice that SB 207 prohibits members of political organizations or issue advocacy groups like the League from serving as poll workers. How many of you who are members of issue advocacy groups have served as poll workers? I'm sure that many of you will find that you oppose these new bills that have been introduced as well. So another way that the League interacts with its members is through communication and engagement. And one thing that's really popular is League Cafe, their monthly conversations, and every other month serves as a book club. Mary Sussman is the one who originated this, and her contact is here. This is from the League update that we just had. So there's a general discussion coming up April 16th, and on May 21st, they will be discussing this book by Henry Louis Gates Jr. And I just want to show you some of the books that the League Cafe has discussed. You probably recognize many of them, and you see a focus on racism and social justice issues. In addition, we have a wonderful opportunity to meet local leaders through Lunch and Learn that again focuses on poverty and systemic racism that caused our state to be ranked the worst state for Black children and their families to grow up in. And I apologize to Pat McFarland. She's a wonderful leader of this group. These are some people who've spoken previously, and I don't have the updated list in front of you, but this is a wonderful opportunity once a month to get to know local leaders and hear what they have to say. Our website has tons of information. It's lwvmilwaukee.org, and the calendar is really a go-to place because if you click there, you can often find the links to the Zoom meetings. We're doing everything virtually right now. And our voter comes out now quarterly, and that actually becomes a bit of a permanent record for what goes on in the League. We also have weekly updates. I already showed you something from the top of the April 8th update. And I want to again emphasize we have a Waukesha branch. Everyone is a member of the League of Women Voters in Milwaukee County, but the Waukesha County branch is more convenient for people who are on the far west side and also allows them to focus on issues in that area. And I just want to make a few announcements. So the statewide League and American Society for Civil Engineer Initiative, the Wisconsin Infrastructure and Economy, that should be April 15th. The newest one will be April 15th. Let's ignore that one. But the newest event will be coming up April 15th, where Bill Holohan and Carl Sutter will be talking about infrastructure, the Wisconsin Infrastructure Report Card, and the economy. And then the Milwaukee Police and Fire Commission will be the subject of a forum for members on April 27th, and that will be to report on some of the extensive work that this new Police Practices and Policy Reform Committee has been doing. And then the LWV People Power Day of Action is coming up on April 29th. And I want to thank you all very much for your attention. I've put up some contacts here for our president, for the Waukesha branch, and for myself. And I thank you very much for your attention. And I guess we can go to Q&A. And also, I want to thank the Unitarian Church again very much for allowing the League yet again to participate in your Share the Plate for the month of April. And thank you again.
Thank you. There aren't any questions in chat yet. People were probably listening intently and couldn't write any questions just yet. But are there any questions from those attending? I see Dennis Merritt has a question. Go right ahead.
Yes, boy, the league does a lot more than I was aware. I thought it was mostly about voting. My question is, you said you don't support candidates and so on. It sounds like you educate people about a lot of these topics. Do you actually propose any legislation, or do you basically support pieces of legislation that are out there, or oppose pieces that you don't like? How does that work with kind of the enacting something at into law?
That's a good question, and it's above my pay grade. We're all volunteers, by the way. And we have a registered lobbyist in Madison. And of course, the league itself at the national level has registered lobbyists. I don't know to what extent the league has actually introduced legislation, but I'm sure as they certainly react to legislation that's put out there. I don't know the answer to your question. Sorry, but I will try to get an answer.
Thank you.
And there is another question in chat. Bernice wanted to know a few more details about how the league is involved in the fair maps and gerrymandering project.
Well, there is a coalition, a Fair Maps coalition, and so our work is done through that coalition. Although Vicki in Waukesha is really heading up her group there. There was a recent training on how to draw fair maps, and so I believe the April 29th event coming up, people will be able to provide input into what suggestions they have for developing fair maps. And they actually will be able to begin to create some suggested fair maps. So, and the league has been involved in litigation over gerrymandering. And, most recently, we lost in the U.S. Supreme Court, which said that basically we didn't have standing, or the people who brought the lawsuit didn't have standing. But that's kind of been the Supreme Court's response to every litigation about gerrymandering and fair maps, is they find a way to not actually address it.
Thank you. There is another question, and it's from Dorothy, and she's wondering, are there workshops offered in writing letters to the editor or lobbying legislators effectively to boost our skills as individuals?
Well, we have had workshops on advocacy, and typically I would say that the letters to the editor grow out of the work that a particular committee or group is doing. So I know that the police policy practices and policy reform committee has submitted letters to the editor at different times. The Natural Resources Committee has submitted, and it's usually individuals. Of course, it has to be individuals within those groups who are submitting letters. That's a very good idea. I'm just going to make a note on that workshop on letters to the editor. Good idea.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. There's a lot of information on your material that you presented in your slideshow. And we try to put that on chat. Chat is limited in that that's only available during today. And when we leave, it's shut down. So I will try to put League of Women Voters information on emails to our two largest groups that I know of, and the Chronologically Gifted and the First Unitarian Social Justice Group. So we'll try to spread the word that way, and I'll try. If I need more information, Ann, I'll ask you for that. Jerry has a question for the league membership and involvement. Did things increase, did interest increase with the advent of, say, Trump or other actions in the election?
Yes, I think that whenever people feel that the voting process is being attacked, our membership increases in response to that. And yes, yes, we have over, I think I asked for our latest numbers. We have 553 members. And I also want to say that there was a conversation I had with Dot Sherman quite a while ago, and she had commented that she felt that the league didn't follow through. And I think that our focus on following through on issues, at least for me, has come directly from Dot's criticism. And I think that one cannot make that criticism of the league now. Is Dot here on the call?
I think so. Okay, good. Good to know that you listen to us. Yes. Let's see. Is the league proposing national standards for fair voting? Now, this is oops, and I missed one. Barbara, I'll get back to yours, but this is a project of the coalition, isn't it, Anne, or is that something that the league would come up with on their own?
Well, the National League is in support of the new HR1 S1 bill that will that tries to bring back essentially the Voting Rights Act and the standards that were set there, and also that law will allow for the creation of independent of districts through independent means, so that we can eliminate this gerrymandering, which is so toxic to any vote having a particular impact.
Speaking of the coalition and fair voting, fair maps, there is an organization, a committee within the church that is also working on that. If you are interested, Kathy Rivera is managing the Defend Democracy group, and they are also Kathy Rivera.
Oh, okay.
And they are very much leading education and informational work on fair maps. So just so you know, that's available there too. I had a question, and I will come back to Barbara's too, but I had a question, and I was really glad to see the survey that came around recently talking about ways to increase diversity within the membership at the league, and as far as issues and expanding that reach. And I am going to attend. There's a hearing on the outcome of that survey, but I thought that was a wonderful initiative on your part to start really admitting that needed to be done.
Well, we have a local DEI committee that's headed by Mary Sussman and Lorna Grady that is just going great guns, as well as a committee, the Community Alliances Committee at the state level. And Eloisa Gomez from our league is one of the co-chairs for that committee. And we're really doing a deep dive into ways that we can integrate DEI into all aspects of our work, and also hopefully transform ourselves individually at the same time through education programs, programming that we were trying to put together for our membership. It's really a tremendous issue, because we should reflect our community, and we should be completely integrated into our community. And the league, I think Voter Services in particular, has been very good at being part of coalitions and partnerships within the community. And natural resources is doing that as well. And I think that the extent to which we can find that we are listening and we are being a part of, and we are attending and developing relationships so that we see where our goals align, and we actually pursue, we plan from the beginning activities in coalition with others. I mean, the Coalition on Lead Emergency is just an amazing group. And I feel so fortunate to be a representative to that group. But I think that's the direction we're headed in. And we want ourselves to actually reflect our community. And in doing so, hopefully then we will also be much more aware of how our work can help all of the many issues that are present in our community.
Okay, I'm going to throw two questions at you, Anne. And the one is one that's been, I kept saying I'm coming back to. Barbara Lee had a question on how we meet and talk with legislators. And maybe there's a few hints you could offer. Of course, that could be done through schedules through the league too, but if you want to do it on your own, I guess. And then the other question, not follow up on this, but it's a new topic, and wants to know how is the league involved in Pipeline 5, which not quite sure which that is, but that's the two questions I'm throwing at you at once.
Okay, I'll start with Pipeline 5, and then you're going to have to remind me what the first question was.
Yeah. Okay, I have the chat here.
Okay, so Pipeline 5 is an in-bridge pipeline that carries fossil fuels from Canada in through around Superior, crosses into Superior, and it goes through the Bad River Indian Reservation around Ashland. And then it goes up across the UP and then back up into Canada. So it crosses the Straits of Mackinac. I mean, it is just, it has had many disasters already. And the Bad River Indian Reservation, what is it called? At any rate, the lease, the easement contract ran out long ago. And so Enbridge has delayed and delayed and delayed. And so the league was involved in litigation to create either to shut it down or to to shut it down. And so Enbridge has responded by suggesting that they will go around the Bad River Reservation, but that still feeds, it's Copper Falls. It would pollute Copper Falls. It would pollute Lake Superior. It would destroy the watershed area there, the rice bed areas that are essential, have been forever to the Indians at the Bad River Reservation. And so that even after multiple judgments against Enbridge, they continue to either act in violation of those or to continue to try to find ways to continue to deliver fossil fuels. And so what was the first part?
Yeah, the little bit different, but kind of sets on each topic is, how do we meet and talk with legislators? What's some hints on getting directly to the legislators?
Well, usually when action alerts are sent out by the state league, that's the way I usually get action alerts, or by the US or even locally. It's for you as a citizen to call or, to write or to email your legislator. And it's amazing what an impact 40 calls will have. One call may not do a lot, but 40 calls, this becomes a priority. At least the staffers are going to make whatever, has come in a priority for a legislator. So it's only rarely that you are designated to speak for the league. Usually we are asking league members as individual citizens to contact their legislators in that way. There have in the past been issues briefing days where you would gather in Madison and then, get some background on particular issues that the league has stated a position on. And then you would go and talk to legislators. Or you can do that through coalitions like with partners who have the same issues in mind. So Wisconsin Conservation Voters, I know I attended an actual in-person issues briefing with them about drinking water and about lead issues before COVID, just before COVID hit. So there are opportunities to do that as well.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I didn't see any more hands up, and we are.
Looks like
at the
Diana
end.
may, I thought Diana may have her
Oops.
hand up, or maybe
Oh.
that's just my, oh,
Diana? Diana, did you have a question? Okay, and I don't know, Dennis, your hand is still up there. That little hand is up there. Is that
Yeah, I have
something you
another
need
question.
to have? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
and then I'll look on the chat again. Sorry. Okay.
Has there been increase in interest in League of Women Voters and so on since George Floyd's murder, and since these laws have sprung up, or proposed laws all over the country for suppressing the vote and so on? Has there, like I said, been more membership on?
Well, I think that those are issues that bring people to the league, and I saw that somebody, I think Jerry Frederickson, was asking if the league positions tend to lean progressive.
Mhm.
The league positions are created through a year or more of study. Again, at the grassroots, a local league does a study. Then they put forth a position based on the study that they've done. And so perhaps over time, the positions that we advocate for do seem to be progressive, because when one studies issues and looks at them rationally and looks at possible solutions, I would say that typically the positions are progressive, but it depends on the timing, because at different times, for example, our focus on independent bodies to create districts. When Democrats were in power, they opposed that. When Republicans were in power, they opposed that. So it isn't, I would say, in terms of intellectually, yes, I think it is progressive and actually very in line with the social justice ideas of the Unitarian Church. But in terms of politically, it could go one way or the other at different times. I mean, in terms of political parties, it could go one way or the other.
Well, and I would imagine either party needs watching at any time. So I'm glad you're there. The leaning progressive question was from Mark Chambers. So just to give him full credit, although Jerry probably wondered the same thing. He just didn't write it yet.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mark had a question. How many men belong to the league?
Good question. I think we have about 10% men in our membership. And of course, our membership is open to anyone. And we welcome men, women. At this point, our age for membership is 16, but we're actually trying to lower that. And we welcome everyone to membership in the league. I think that there's a way possibly, and I may be speaking out of turn, to get perhaps the league updates. If you, you may be able to sign on to do that. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But that could tell you, you know, the league updates come out every week and they tell you what's coming up.
Has anybody ever suggested a name change, or is there an equivalent men's organization?
Yes, yes, that suggestion has come up, but I think just traditionally, the league started right around the time that the 19th Amendment was ratified in 1920. And I've actually gone to the County Historical Society to look at league memorabilia that is, they have boxes and boxes of it at the Milwaukee County Historical Society. And I saw, you know, an annual meeting from 1930 for the Greater Milwaukee League. I don't know how far back actually the Greater Milwaukee League extended, but in 1989, we had a merger of 3 leagues: the North Shore League, the Wauwatosa League, and the Greater Milwaukee League, to form the League of Women Voters of Milwaukee County. So that's just a little bit of trivia. And by the way, we had a wonderful poem written by Phyllis Wax, who read it recently at our centennial celebration, and honoring our 50-year members. People have been members for more than half the time the league has been in existence. And she talked about a league born of 3 mothers in 1989. And she had forgotten that she had written the poem, but I had found it at the Historical Society, so she thankfully read it.
Oh, good for you. All right. I think we have asked all the questions that are bubbling out there. And maybe we'll just ask for a few closing remarks, Ann, and we may close our forum soon.
Well, I just want to
you.
say that the league is a volunteer organization. We have 1 paid part-time administrative assistant, and all of this work that you see here was produced by volunteers. And we have very dedicated volunteers, and we welcome anyone who would like to join or just look us over. We have new member orientations twice a year to kind of go through what I just went through, but in a more interactive way, hopefully. It's just a wonderful place to be. And I've met so many wonderful people through the league, many of whom, as I said, are also members of the Unitarian Church here. And also, again, I want to thank the Unitarian Society for their generosity in Share the Plate. And I would encourage everyone here to sign up for a newsletter. I think you can do that on our website. But again, don't quote me.
Okay, and there's a nice thank you on the chat from Mark, so be sure you read that. He's signing off, but thanks you so much for the important work that the league does in the community. So thank you, Ann, and thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
I see Dennis said, when did the league start? 1920.
And you, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lorraine.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes,
Great.
definitely. Thank you. Okay. Bye, everybody.